The story you're about to see is a big, fat lie. No names have been changed to protect anybody.
Let's get ready to rumble!
And now, the USCFL Network, in association with YouTube, presents the USCFL Postgame Show. Here's once again is Robbie Graham.
Greetings, cartoon and football fans. This is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network, here to present the action and highlights of Week 8 and the final week of Round 2 of the USCFL's 2022 season. The winner of these games will determine who will play who in Round 3 and where. At the end of this video, we will have that schedule for Round 3. Before we continue, please take a moment and subscribe to this channel and join our team. We strive to be one of YouTube's least offensive channels, providing a different spin about your favorite cartoon characters from the past and present. If we don't mention your favorite character or characters in these post-game shows, leave a comment and we will answer your questions. Most likely they are on one of the 16 teams in the league, but in a second or third string capacity. Also be sure to ring the bell to alert you of when we put up a new video. We have a lot to cover this week, and without any further delays, we'll get to the action. After a brief pause, we will talk about and present the highlights of Game 15 between the Disney All-Stars and the Filmation All-Stars in their first ever meeting from a soggy Richmond, Virginia.
Mister, I'll make a man out of you. Tranquil as a forest, but on fire within.
Welcome back. This weekend's games were wet. Rain in Virginia and snow in Kansas City. But the rain and the snow didn't stop the home team in both games from winning. Friday night in Richmond, the Disney All-Stars and the Filmation All-Stars squared off for the first time ever. But for Mickey Mouse and She-Ras, this wasn't their first meeting. She-Ras is celebrating her 35th anniversary in the league and for many years faced Mickey Mouse as part of her own team or as part of the Masters of Power. And back in that time, they played in some very exciting games. Here are two examples. In the 2009 Atlantic Conference Championship game, the Masters of Power led by 18 points with under 3 minutes left to play. Disney's potent defensive unit bounced back to win with 21 unanswered points in a 2-minute span to go to face Jim Henson in Go for the Gold 46. 2 years later, they met again in the 2011 Atlantic Conference Championship game, and this time the Masters of Power defeated Disney on the arm of She-Ras and the leg of her alter ego Adora to face the Smurfs in Go for the Gold 48 against the Smurfs, and won in what was then to become the greatest game ever played in USCFL history. As part of the Filmation All-Stars, this was She-Ras and Mickey's first contest. In the first quarter, Adora put up the first points of the game with a field goal. A little more than a minute later, Hordak intercepted a Mickey Mouse pass for a pick six as Filmation led 10-0. Ariel, the Little Mermaid, kicked a field goal as Filmation led 10-3 after the first quarter. In the second quarter, both Adora and Ariel each put up a pair of field goals on the board as Filmation led 16-9 at halftime. After Adora kicked her fourth field goal to start the third quarter, Buzz Lightyear of Toy Story went to the end zone and beyond with a 4-yard touchdown run to trail 19-16 midway through the third quarter. Towards the end of the quarter, She-Ras threw a 4-yard touchdown pass to her castmate Perfuma as Filmation led 26-16 at the end of the third quarter. Filmation shut out Disney in the fourth quarter with a 41-yard touchdown run by Spinnerella and Adora's fifth field goal to win 36-16. Filmation will remain at home for round 3 while Disney will remain on the road. As for the stats for this game, beginning with Disney, Mickey finished 17 of 27 for 159 yards and 1 interception. He also rushed for 92 yards on 11 carries. At some point during the game, Cinderella temporarily took over for Mickey and went 2 for 3 for 26 yards. Buzz Lightyear rushed for 80 yards on 22 carries and 1 touchdown. Jessie, also of Toy Story, led the receivers with 4 catches for 45 yards. She-Go of Kim Possible led the defense with 6 tackles and 3 assists. Ariel finished with 10 points. For Filmation, She-Ras finished 26 of 43 for 268 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Spinnerella rushed for 200 yards on 31 carries and 1 touchdown. Glimmer led the receivers with 5 catches for 68 yards. Tex Hex of Brave Star led the defense with 6 tackles, 2 assists, and 2 sacks. Adora finished with 18 points. Hordak was the player of the game with 4 tackles, 8 assists, 1 interception, and the pick 6 he had in the first quarter. And here is how the highlights of this game looked on screen.
watching? Tell me who's watching? Who's watching me?
I'm just an average man with an average life. I work from 9 to 5. Hey, hell, I pay the price. All I want is to be left alone in my average home. But why do I always feel like I'm in the twilight zone? And I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Oh, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? When I come home at night, I break the door real tight. People call me on the phone, I'm trying to avoid. Well, can the people on TV see me, or am I just paranoid? When I'm in the shower, I'm afraid to wash my hair, 'cause I might open my eyes and find someone standing there. People say I'm crazy, just a little touched, but maybe showers remind me of psycho doom. That's why I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Oh, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Who's playing tricks on me? I don't know anymore. Are the neighbors watching me? Well, it's the mailman watching me. And I don't feel safe anymore. Oh, what a mess. I wonder who's watching me now. The IRS? I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Oh, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Oh, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Who's playing tricks on me? I always feel like somebody's watching me. Oh, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Tell me, who can it be? Who's watching me? I always feel like somebody's watching me. Oh, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Who's playing tricks on me? I always feel like somebody's watching me. Can I have my privacy? I always feel like somebody's watching me. Who's playing tricks on me?
After a brief pause, we will talk about and present the highlights of an exciting Game 16 between the Comic Strip All-Stars and the DC Comics All-Stars from a snowy Kansas City. Welcome back. For only the fourth time in league history that a game was played in snowy weather, a freak snowstorm that started in the Rockies moved east to the heartland and covered the region with snow. In Kansas City last night, the Comic Strip All-Stars and the DC Comics All-Stars faced each other to close out round 2. 2 years ago, these two teams faced each other twice during the comic strips run for the Disney Bowl title. At that time, the comic strips won both times, only for them to lose to Filmation in Disney Bowl 3. But in this blizzard of a game, points scored froze with the weather initially. In the first quarter, Wonder Woman threw a 14-yard touchdown pass to tight end Stargirl to go up 7-0. Blondie Bumstead kicked a field goal as DC Comics led 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. In the second quarter, Batgirl extended the lead 10-3 with a field goal. Blondie's second field goal closed the gap 10-6 with a minute 30 left in the half. Just 10 seconds later, Dilbert intercepted a Wonder Woman pass for a pick six to take a 13-10 lead at halftime. DC Comics retook the lead with a 54-yard touchdown run by Robin to go up 17-13 at the start of the third quarter. The comic strips retook the lead with a 1-yard touchdown run by Archie Andrews to go up 20-17. Blondie's third field goal extended the lead 23-17 at the end of the third quarter. But in the fourth quarter, the game's progression took an unexpected turn, as Hawkman rushed in from 1 yard out to go up 24-23 with just over 9 minutes left. The comic strips went up 31-24 with Archie's second touchdown run and a successful 2-point conversion. The game had the possibility of going into overtime. Robin's second touchdown run tied the game at 31 with 5.5 minutes left to play. With under 2 minutes left, Black Manta intercepted a Charlie Brown pass and ran it in from 51 yards out, and Batgirl's second field goal gave DC Comics a 41-31 win. DC Comics will remain at home for round 3, while the comic strips remains on the road. As for the stats in this game, beginning with the comic strip All-Stars, Charlie Brown finished 24 of 47 for 287 yards and 1 interception. Archie Andrews rushed for 134 yards on 31 carries and 2 touchdowns. Dennis the Menace led the receivers with 6 catches for 90 yards. John Arbuckle from Garfield led the defense with 7 tackles, 3 assists, and 1 interception. Blondie Bumstead finished with 11 points. For DC Comics, Wonder Woman finished 29 of 46 for 411 yards, 1 touchdown, and a record-tying 7 interceptions. Robin rushed for 204 yards on 33 carries and 2 touchdowns. The Huntress led the receivers with 7 catches for 108 yards. Harley Quinn led the defense with 6 tackles, 2 assists, and 1 sack. Batgirl also finished with 11 points. Dilbert was the player of the game with 6 tackles, 3 assists, 3 of Wonder Woman's 7 interceptions, and the pick 6 he had in the second quarter. And here is how the highlights of this exciting game looked on screen. After a brief pause, we will continue our series of player profiles as we take one final look back at the She-Ras controversy that nearly ruined the legacy of the Princess of Power.
We're warriors, unstoppable. We feel the evil coming, and shadows all around. Danger surrounds us, but won't bring us down. We're on the edge of greatness.
Welcome back. For the honor of Grayskull, those 5 words, 4 of which are normal, ordinary words, and the 5th is the name of a castle in the world of the Masters of the Universe. But when they are said by this week's player, they bring hope to those who needs it and terror into the hearts of evildoers. For this week's profile, instead of doing a normal history of the character, we will take one final look back at a controversy not of the character's making that almost cost her her legacy. She-Ra's true legacy is that of the same as He-Man's legacy. A great character of immense strength and power with the courage, compassion, and heart to match. As we strive to be as least offensive as possible here on this channel, the following statement is not just of my own opinion, but that of millions of fans all over the world on both sides that caused a major war of words on the internet. But to start this look back, let's look at the basics. In the 1980s, the popularity of the He-Man line of action figures and the TV show that followed prompted Mattel and Filmation to do the same for girls. According to my research and from what I heard from other YouTubers, that 20% of He-Man fans were girls. So it would make sense that the same number of boys would like She-Ra. The Princess of Power line of action figures were the second such line ever made for girls. The line were played by girls in the same manner as boys did with the He-Man action figures. But each character's hair could be brushed and had interchanging outfits similar to that of Barbie. Just as Filmation brought He-Man to television, they did the same for She-Ra. However, She-Ra debuted on the silver screen in March of 1985 in the movie The Secret of the Sword. The TV series debuted in September of that year, with the first 5 episodes was the movie broken up into a mini-series with 10 extra minutes of footage not seen in theaters. The show ran for 2 seasons and 93 episodes, third only to Fat Albert and He-Man. The series was cut short not because of a lack of popularity or poor ratings. The series was cut short when Mattel pulled the plug on the toy line after suffering a major loss in sales, going from making $400 million in 1985 to just $7 million in sales in 1986. Swifty's Baby was the series finale, but it wasn't meant to be at first. No one knows for sure if there are any lost episodes that didn't make it to television. It's possible, but so far it hasn't been probable. Both He-Man and She-Ra remained on television until around 1990, even though Filmation closed its doors for good in 1989. She-Ra joined the USCFL in 1987, but we'll get to that later. Now for the part of this story where the controversy happened. Please take note that again, the following is based on fact only and based on research and other YouTube videos on this subject. DreamWorks Animation bought the entire Filmation library except for the He-Man series, for which it remains in Mattel's possession. But they had the rights of the She-Ras series. In 2017, a young woman named Noelle Stevenson was given the role of showrunner and was assigned to bringing She-Ra back to television after more than a 30-year absence. Noelle Stevenson was initially had the webcomic Nanoma and the comic series Lumberjanes, and also worked on the Disney animated series Wander Over Yonder. But as the new She-Ra showrunner, she turned the animated world upside down with what most people called a poor reboot of a once great character. Stevenson, being a member of the LGBT community, made the new version of She-Ra in this manner. She admitted at a Comic-Con in New York that she never watched the original series, as did the voice of the new character, Amy Carrero. The problem she did see in the new series was that all the characters looked identical, with little or no diversity. She might not have been aware that the original series was based on the action figures. When Entertainment Weekly put the first image of the new She-Ra on their website, fans of the original series were up in arms. Soon afterwards, social media was ablaze with people sharing their feelings about the poor redesign of the character. Soon after, when the new series began, most people hated it with a passion. As some YouTubers put it, She-Ra was being slut-shamed for how she looked, and that older male fans were using her in the same manner as a centerfold in Playboy or Penthouse. To make such an accusation is ridiculous. Let's say for the moment that that is true, that boys like She-Ra for being attractive. There is nothing wrong with that if they develop a cartoon crush on her. Other such characters were also looked at in this manner. But as grown men, to still think that way, it would be the last thing on their minds. When you consider that they have careers, families, deadlines, bills, mortgages, etc. She-Ra was also accused of being scantily clad. Some might agree with that, but believe me, some women flash more in church. Her outfit isn't that revealing. Some also thought she had big boobs. I'm not good at guessing a woman's breast size, but She-Ra isn't that big in that department. Jessica had more of a rack, and as she put it, she was drawn that way. But if asked if She-Ra is hot, it's okay to answer yes. But it's not okay if you answer that you think of her in the manner previously mentioned. Stevenson was slammed when she revealed that the writers of the new series were a diverse group. But when pictured, the writers were 6 white women. Making the characters diverse isn't all that bad. But the reboot went a little too far in that department also. To age She-Ra down is okay, but in order to have done that, there had to be a reason for it. The original series told her story from when she was a full-grown woman. Some thought she was a teenager as well. Believe me, no 16-year-old girl I knew in high school, or whom I might have worked with in retail, never looked like that, and still might not look like that today as grown women. Though watching these videos, along with my own research, I learned that Filmation had the largest concentration of LGBT employees in Hollywood at the time. Lou Scheimer's daughter Erica is also part of the LGBT community. The biggest difference between the two shows was that the original series may have had its faults, but it was made to be enjoyed by everyone, while most agreed that the new series was made by a selected few for a selected few. I was a teenager when She-Ra was first seen on television, and I did like her for how she looked, but I also liked her for more than what she was capable of, than just her looks alone. But this was 1985 I'm talking about. Things were different back then. I learned of this later than others because at the time I wasn't big on social media. For instance, I have a Facebook page, but I rarely post. and I have been a YouTuber since 2015, but didn't start making videos until the start of the 2019 season. And I credit She-Ras for making this channel possible. As for her time in the USCFL, She-Ras, as I stated earlier, is celebrating her 35th anniversary in the league. She, along with Smurfette and Daphne Blake, are the three greatest quarterbacks in league history. She's been a 4-time USCFL champion, a 2-time title game MVP, holds various personal and team records, including playing a game in 2009 to the highest score ever in league history with 107 points, a record that might never be broken. The controversy hit the USCFL hard that had prompted the league to pit the two She-Ras together in a game that has become known as the most unusual game ever played in USCFL history. It was called this because never before that an established character took on a rebooted character. The new She-Ras won that game, and it was the last game to be presented in audio format only. 4 months later, they met again in the rematch of the 21st century, in which the original She-Ras won. The entire player body of the league also took a stand as they were in the stadium for the first game to support their friend, rival, and colleague. For the second game, they watched the game from a different location. Other factors prompted the second game to take place. Then we put them together again in 3-episode runoffs in which the original She-Ras won once and for all. Although we strive to provide a vast diversity of characters, we don't allow any rebooted characters, for if the original character hadn't existed in the first place, then they would be allowed. This has been a rule that has been in place for many years. When She-Ras and the Filmation All-Stars won Disney Bowl III, it ended a 2-year nightmare for her, and her appreciation for the show of support brought on by the league didn't go unnoticed. Now, even with the He-Man reboot last year, it also made a mockery of him as well, as he was practically a second fiddle to Teela. Now there's talk of a live-action She-Ras series Amazon is putting out that will feature her, but as the original character. Fans of the new series insist that this isn't the case, and it's their She-Ras that will once again take center stage. Everyone involved with the new series have deserted the show, and some jumped ship before the new series finished its run on Netflix. In my opinion, and this is my opinion only, the new She-Ras should have been the original She-Ras' daughter, who took over for her when a new tyrannical group threatens the peace on Etheria. The new She-Ras friends should have been the sons and daughters of the original characters, for which they would have different names, personalities, etc. I wrote a Fashion Girl story called 2 Shades of Grayskull that talked about this controversy from an entirely different perspective. In this story, She-Ras is a real person and spends part of her time on Earth, which is not that uncommon, for which, if you remember, She-Ras' mother, Queen Marlena, is from the planet Earth. And Fashion Girl knows She-Ras personally, and She-Ras asks for Fashion Girl's help in this manner, as does Fashion Girl's allies too. You can hear this story in its entirety on this channel as read by Alexa, the Amazon app. The following is a brand new video, and this time both She-Ras are featured. To prevent it from getting the red flag, I used images of the new She-Ras sparingly, as I put 2 clips of the original series together, again with 1 clip from the new series. I also put a timestamp on all of the new show's clips and the total time at the end of the video. It is my hope that with all that is going on in the world, and we need togetherness now more than ever, that something like this never divides people like that ever again.
We searched for you for many years, Adora.
But we could not find the dimension to which Hordak had escaped. To spare Adam the pain of your loss, I cast a spell that wiped all memory of you and the Horde from the people. Only the king and queen, Man-at-Arms and I knew the secret.
And now?
Now you have gained the sword of protection and become She-Ras, as you were always meant to do. The rest is up to you.
I was trying to tell you. Mom, meet
She-Ras.
Your Majesty, I've come to pledge myself to the rebellion. But first, there's something you should know.
Out from the wreckage, can't make the same mistake this time. We are the children, the last generation. We are the ones they left behind. When we are ever gonna change, living under the fear till nothing else remains. We don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is life beyond the Thunderdome. Looking for something we can rely on. There's got to be something better out there. Love and compassion. That day is coming. All else are castles built in the air. And I wonder when we are ever gonna change. Living under the fear till nothing else remains. All the children say we don't need another hero.
To them cheer. It's good to hear them so happy.
How about you? Aren't you happy?
Yes and no.
You are not returning to Eternia with me, are you?
I can't. Hordak was right. One battle doesn't win a war. And it's a war Etheria's fighting. I'm needed here, He-Man. At least for now.
I understand. And in a way, I feel maybe things were meant to happen like this. Me becoming He-Man to protect Eternia. You becoming She-Ra to do the same on Etheria.
Yes, I feel that too. I only wish it made things easier. Tell Mother and Father I love them.
I will. Ready to go home, Battle Cat?
Sure, He-Man.
Say goodbye to all my friends here, will you? And if you should ever need my help,
I'll call. And if you ever...
I'll know just who to ask for.
Up, Swift Wind!
Farewell, She-Ra, Princess of Power!
Farewell, He-Man, dear brother!
She-Ra, She-Ra.
The USCFL also has a goal and a mission to leave whatever the legacies of the characters, whatever they might be, alone, as new legacies are made. After one final pause, we'll reveal the answer to last week's trivia question, this week's question, the all-important schedule for round 3, and a preview of next week's games. Welcome back. Now for the answer to last week's trivia question. We asked, what was the original name of the island Wonder Woman is from? If you guessed Paradise Island, you are right. From her conception in 1941 to the late 1990s, Paradise Island was the name of Wonder Woman's island. It was called that even in the 1970s TV series that starred Linda Carter in the title role. Now for this week's question. The category is SpongeBob by the numbers. The degree of difficulty is All-Star. In the episode Krusty Love, SpongeBob introduced Mr. Krabs to Mrs. Puff. He took her for an expensive dinner in an expensive restaurant. The question is, how much money did Mr. Krabs spend on this date? Is the correct answer A, $5,000, B, $10,000, C, $25,000, or D, $100,000? We'll have the answer for you next week. But before we go, here is a look at the schedule for round 3 of the USCFL's 2022 season. And that will do it for Week 8 of the USCFL's 2022 season and the final week of Round 2. Next week, Round 3 begins, as will the fun of elimination, as we will present the highlights of Game 17 between the Warner Brothers All-Stars and the Marvel Comics All-Stars from Chicago, and the highlights of Game 18 between the Disney All-Stars and the 80s All-Stars in a Disney Bowl 1 rematch from Miami. Which of these teams will be eliminated and which teams will advance? Find out next week, and we will profile another player in the USCFL. Until next Sunday, this is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network wishing you peace. Take care and stay safe.
All the characters and franchises mentioned throughout this webcast remains the copyright of their respective owners. They were used for the purpose of entertainment and or education, and therefore no breach of any copyright laws were intended. This webcast is protected under copyright and must not be rewritten, re-recorded, rebroadcast or re-uploaded in whole or in part without the prior written consent of First and 10 Productions, the American Association of Animation, and the United States Cartoon Football League. Copyright 2022.